Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 229, and we got an awesome show for you anyway, and we'll get to our guest in a minute. If you've watched this show for any length of time, then you know that in the beginning we sort of go the rounds and we promote something that we've got going on. I typically go first if I'm hosting, but I'm gonna I'm not gonna promote anything for myself. I got something else I want to promote that I'm not really involved in, but it's kind of apropos to what we're talking about tonight. And let me see if I can find that. Where did it go? I'll throw this up here. And that is this here. And my dog's going to start. Okay. It is quiet. It's the Fired Festival. And basically what it is it's put on by Mark Brickey from Adventures in Design, the Adventures in Design podcast, and it's kind of cool. If you're familiar, it's not not to be confused with the Fire Festival, which was a festival that basically stole a bunch of money from rich people. This is sort of the opposite, where they're giving back to people that kind of need it. So basically, what it is, it's an online design conference, and there's awesome lineup of guests here, and so if you're unemployed or furloughed, it's free for you, and anyone else, it's $25. And then all that money, any money that they get, goes towards like grocery gift cards to give to people that need it, that are affected by this, probably most likely in the design community. But anyway, so I signed up. I paid the $25, and this thing's going to be tomorrow. So it's sort of late notice, but I thought it made a lot of sense to bring this up because it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about tonight. So if you guys are watching this now, or if you're watching this sometime early tomorrow and you want to check that out, definitely do, because it looks really cool. So just wanted to mention that. So that's basically what I'm going to promote tonight. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, I think that's great. You should go do that instead of what I was going to say.
Okay.
That's awesome. But yeah, you can always just find my stuff at coreykerr.com. At the end of this week or beginning of next week, I'm going to release a video kind of explaining the thing that I'm doing, where I'm trying to bring attention to artists, and it'll take me a while to get each episode out, but I'm doing a little animation, and I'd like graffiti and stickers and whatever else and posters and whatnot in the scenes that I'm doing. And so keep an eye out on that. And I've got some people submitting their art already, but the idea would be that everybody can like go and then discover new artists, and I'll link to everybody, and they'll be in the credits and stuff like that. So that's something I'm trying to do to kind of spread some stuff around and get people to drive some traffic to some cool artists. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. And so our guest tonight is Thomas Clemmons. And so first of all, before we get started, it is Thomas's birthday, and I didn't realize that when I booked him for the show. So I don't know if I should feel bad for bringing him on here on his birthday, or if I should feel honored that he actually accepted on his birthday.
No, actually, I appreciate you having me on, especially on my birthday. It's kind of like a treat. I've watched a few of your guys' episodes, and y'all are always really top notch and everything. So it's nice to be here, especially like I said on my birthday. So it's kind of
And if you know, I am a big fan of your work. And actually, a while back, I think it was there was a drink and draw. I forgot. I think it might have been on Jim Lujan's channel, and they kind of asked for anyone to, like, if you got like a website or some artist that you wanted to kind of feature, that you like their work that probably doesn't get enough eyes on their stuff. And I picked you because I've always been a big fan of your style and everything, and just really cool stuff. So why don't you tell people what you do and where they can find you and anything you got to promote?
All right. What I mainly do is I have been doing I've done several web comics, but the one I've done the most for 10 years, it's recently ended, but it's Robot Friday at robotfriday.com. And it's basically about me and my friends, and kind of just, it started out as a way to vent about the graphic design industry, and then kind of evolved into just kind of a slice of life kind of thing. before it ended. And then my most recent thing is welcome to hopetexas.com. And it's a comic that's sort of slice of life, but at the same time, it has a lot of kind of science fiction-y crazy things going on about it. It's basically about two guys that live in a dead-end town in Texas called Hope. And one of them is recently diagnosed with a weird disease that he's going to die in 2 years. So they put together a bucket list to try and, do that for the next 2 years. And then outside of that, that first one you put up, ClemmonsComicsandCrafts.com. That's my pretty much catch-all website that me and my wife have, that we do everything with comic conventions and stuff. We kind of go through that. So those are the three main websites that I have. And like I said, I'm mainly a webcomic artist. I do some freelance stuff. I've been a graphic designer for 25 years now. So basically just kind of a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. And then your Patreon. Looks like you got a Patreon.
My Patreon. That's patreon.com/Thomas Clemmons. And I have $1, $5, and $10 tiers. And I try to post twice a day up there of just kind of like process stuff I'm working on through the day, and different kinds of, not just that, but like extra perks and stuff that I don't really put on social media. So that's pretty much in a nutshell everything that I do, unless I'm forgetting something, which I'm sure I am.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you got so many different URLs and so many different projects. I'm kind of hesitant to mention another one because I don't want to I don't want people to just like, oh, what do I go to? He's got so much stuff. But there's also Design a Super, which I just bought that a little while ago, and it's. You want to talk just real briefly about what that is, because I think that's a really cool project too.
The Design a Super book at designasuper.com is basically, it's a how to draw book, but what I do in it is I tell you everything that I've done to get to where I'm at as far as my style and stuff like that, but I don't tell you exactly how you've got to draw. I kind of give you the basics and then kind of really try and reinforce that the way that you draw is a valid way to draw, and I kind of try to get you confident in drawing your own way so that you can kind of level up from there. So that's basically what the Imagination Field Guide is.
Yeah, and that's great, because one of the biggest questions I know I get is like, oh, I don't know where do I start? I don't know. I don't have any ideas and that type of thing. And anything that I can point people to that will help spark ideas, and this is definitely one of those things. So.
Yeah, I always tell people, when I get questions and stuff like that too, is I always tell people that they already know more than they think they do. And so it's just really all it is like confidence building, that you've got to just, draw every day and just keep drawing even when you don't want to draw, even though it's not coming out well or whatever. Just keep drawing, and with more experience, you get better at what you're doing.
Awesome. Very cool. So, all right. So Thomas, the reason why I reached out to you is because I kind of read one of your posts, and actually it's funny because like you had mentioned, you had put a call out saying, I think the first thing I saw was a message that you had sold out of all your copies of the 100 anthology, which all three of us here were involved in. Mm-hmm. And I know I still have copies of that. I haven't sold out. And so you basically had to, I'll let you tell the story, but basically hustled and you got all those sold and everything, which is awesome. But, also, you were just kind of put the thing out saying, I've got the stuff and everything. If anyone wants, I think you sent out a free web comic. And prior to that, I was already getting ready to buy the Design a Super. And so I was like, oh, this is just, an awesome opportunity. So I know I picked up a few things, and it sounded like some other people did too, which is good, because like a lot of people, myself included, we're just kind of in this weird situation. I know I'm in a situation where a lot of my client work went away. Fortunately, I had some other streams of income coming in. Not everyone does, and some people, maybe they have things, and you might be sort of in this situation where you have things that you can market, but you you weren't really in that marketing mode, and you're kind of forced to go in that mode. But I'm just kind of setting it up. So I'll let you kind of go into it and kind of explain your situation and kind of what you did to kind of improve on that.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, when all of the COVID-19 thing started, I guess it was the last week of March when I started seeing all of the comic book conventions and stuff like that starting to either postpone or cancel. And then, when the government started doing, minor shutdowns of stuff, me and my wife during the summer, we try to do, a handful of conventions. And so we had already stocked up with a lot of stuff. I mean, she makes handcraft stuff. So she had made a lot of, handcrafted things. And then, of course, I've got like 12, the Werewolf and Unicorn book, made 13 books that I sell at conventions. So I already had, all this merchandise. And then when I started seeing all these things close down, I thought, well, I've got all this stuff, and it's odds are we're not going to have convention season. So I need to figure out if I can sell this stuff online. And so that's kind of where it started, because at the time I still had my day job. So I was just thinking, I'm going to, unload as much of the convention stuff as I can, and, get a little bit of side money on the side, because basically for me and my wife, that's what our convention season are, is just kind of, side money. And so anyway, so I started selling, and I think a part of this is, first off, I don't want to sound like I'm some kind of business guru, because I'm not. But I think a lot of the sales too came with one, that what I was selling was a good product, especially with the Werewolves and Unicorn book. I think there's a lot of people out there, because the one convention that I did do, there was a lot of really positive reception of that book, being a kind of like an anthology and kind of a graphic novel size book, compared to my floppies that I sell. So I think first off, that's a really good thing, is if you got the good product. And secondly, I think just in this weird time that we're in, I think a lot more people are way more generous than we give people credit for most of the time. And I just think a lot of people, I hate to use this terminology, but it's time, a lot of timing too, kind of good timing, because right now I think a lot of people they're doing, like you said, are trying to help people out as much as they possibly can. And so coupled with that, with the good product and the timing, I think that helped a lot of my sales. But two, I've been doing graphic design for 25 years, and most of that time has been kind of like in a smaller corporate environment. So I've been around a lot of salespeople. So actually, when in my day job, the salespeople are kind of my client, because they go out and get the jobs and stuff, and then I give them the stuff, and then they go sell it. And so working with salespeople for 25 years, you kind of pick up things here and there a lot. So, if you're an artist and you're working in kind of like a sales environment or in a corporate environment, pay attention to a lot of what the salespeople are doing. If you don't know anything about sales, because if you pay attention to what they're doing and figure out why they're doing things, you can kind of use those things to help you sell. And so like I said, that's what I started doing that last week of March. And then it was just weird, because then I got furloughed. And the good thing is that with me doing a lot of the comics and conventions and stuff like that for the last decade or so, I already kind of, even though my day job brought in the majority of my money, I kind of felt like my day job was my secondary job and comics is my primary job. So I was always hustling at home at night and on the weekends and stuff, drawing comics, setting websites up, figuring out different kinds of avenues for revenue, like Gumroad and Patreon, and setting my own websites up to sell through PayPal and stuff. PayPal is like my friend as far as sales goes. And so I kind of I was in a lucky position because I kind of already had all of these things set up, had all this stuff so that when I got furloughed, I could just basically the next day get up and work on my comics more now than I had been before, because, you know, I considered the comics my primary job. So now I had in my head, I had, you know, an extra 8 hours I could work on the comics. Not only that, but the day job that I had that furloughed me, I work for them freelance as well, because the reason they did furlough me is like with you and everybody else, it was like a switch and their clientele just dropped off. And so 1 month we were like best month, you know, we were having the best year of our, you know, lives. And then the next month, boom, there was like no work coming in. So, you know, my advice about that would be too, is that even in good times, I always understood my pecking order in the company, because I'm art. So I'm basically, for lack of a better term, financial and liability to them, because they're paying me and I'm not making actually sales, bringing money in. So I always knew my pecking order was, you know, I was low on the totem pole. So I'm always in the back of my mind thinking, you know, one of these days they can come in and just fire me for no reason. So I better have some backup. And so that's kind of why I put everything in place too, is because, you know, I'm always paranoid about, you know, not having a job for whatever reason all of a sudden. And so because I had everything set up, it was pretty seamlessly for me to get up and start just working the next day. But what I decided to do that I hadn't ever done before, that was, since I'd had a pretty good sales week while I was still working there with selling werewolves and unicorns, because I think that month or that week I sold like $200 or $300 worth of books, maybe. And I can't remember if they were all werewolves and unicorns or if it was a combination of Robot Friday and stuff, but I sold a couple $100 worth of stuff. So that kind of gave me some momentum. And so what I decided to do was I decided that I would go ahead and start selling through Facebook. But what I knew didn't really work for me a lot of the times is just putting a post on Facebook going, hey, I got this stuff to sell. Here's the link. Hit me up. It works. It's a real hit and miss for me. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it doesn't. And my guess at that is because, you know, everybody's the same. We are all just like scrolling through stuff, because I see stuff, people selling stuff all the time, just keep scrolling through, you know, not maliciously or anything. It's just, you know, we got all kinds of things in our face. But so what I decided I would do was on my Facebook friends list, that I was just going to go down and basically use my friends list as a sales sheet and go in there and hit them up individually by DM and say, hey, this is what I've got, you know, post a link, post a little picture on there so they could see what I was selling. And I wrote up like a kind of like a sales pitch, and I customized it where I needed to, because a lot of times when you write up a sales pitch, I mean, a lot of it's going to be redundant. You know, you need to tell people this is what I got. Here's how to get to it. So all you need to really change is like maybe the first couple of sentences and then send it out. And so my first, I guess the last convention of last year, I talked with a guy that was a t-shirt vendor there that had been in business for a long time. And we just got to talking because it was a pretty slow convention. And he luckily told me kind of like his formula as far as like business formula for sales. Basically in a nutshell, he told me, you know, figure out all the merchandise I have, what the monetary value of that is, and then figure out what 15 to 30% of that is, because that's pretty much what you're going to sell. It's 15 to 30%. So what I did is I kind of took that kind of mentality and put it towards my sales pitches on Facebook. And I figured out, okay, if I had X amount of books, like for instance, let's take the werewolves and unicorns. If I had like 20 of those books and I wanted to try and sell all 20 of them, then I would need to, you know, send out like, I can't remember the numbers exactly off the top of my head, but like 60 pitches, and I would sell, whatever 15 to 30% of 60 people are. So whatever that is, like you do 60 and then you might sell 6, right? And so that's basically what I did. I sat down at my computer and I just punched in, going down my DM list, and sent people DMs, like 60 of them the first day. And by the end of that first week, I'd sold about 6 to 10 books. So the formula was working. And so that gave me more momentum. And so I just kept kind of doing that. And before I knew it, by the end of April, I'd sold like 19 books. I sold 3 at the convention in 2 days, and then 19 in like, that month. And that was just basically in a nutshell what I did is I had everything, not really everything, but I had things in place when I got furloughed. And then I just kind of took that leap from being just strictly an artist to like a salesperson, and just went in there and just started basically hitting people up. I mean, it was nerve-wracking because I'm not necessarily naturally a salesperson. And so, it was nerve-wracking, hitting people up, just kind of like cold calling, because in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, that you're bothering people or, whatever it is. And, but that's basically, I had to suck it up and do it. And after the first 1 or 2 weeks, it got a lot easier. But what I also didn't want to do is I didn't want to upset the people that are on my friends list that follow me. So I didn't want to, send all these people this stuff out and then piss people off and then have this like mass exodus of my Facebook, because I don't necessarily want to use Facebook as a sales tool. I like to use it as, anybody else does, where it's like social media and getting my work out there and look at other people's work and etc. But it just happens to be a really good sales tool too, because you've got this big list of people, depending on how many people that you have on your friends list, where you have, their contact information, and you can go in there and very politely, pitch sales and stuff to them. But like I said, at the same time, I didn't want it to be like overly like, buy. So what I did the first week is I went down my friends list on just my Facebook personal page. And then the next week, I went down my friends list on my Robot Friday page and just sold Robot Friday books that week. And then the next week, I went to my Instagram page or Instagram people, and sold a few Werewolves and Unicorns books there, because at least the way that I use Instagram is a lot different than what I use Facebook. Normally I use Instagram to kind of like just put my work up there and let people look at it, rather than just be real sociable, just because I don't know, for some reason Instagram just doesn't feel that social to me. It feels more of like you're displaying stuff rather than being social. So a lot of those people that I hit up there this was like the first time that I was ever that I'd ever talked to them, right? And so what I decided to do then is I decided to, like you said, I decided to give them a free comic and kind of break the ice that way and say, hey, thanks for following me. Here's a free comic for your attention. And by the way, I have this other stuff that I'm selling also. And, no pressure to buy. Just wanted to say thanks and, have a good one. And that was surprisingly worked out really well too. Again, I crunched the numbers on how many I needed to do, and I sat down and I sent 60 DMs out to people. And that's another thing that you got to realize: sitting down in front of your computer and typing in 60 things to 60 different people, that takes like all day. So,
well, it's good that you did that, because most people just put a sales, just basically. And I'm sure there was probably some sort of template, and and you customize it. I know that's probably what I would have done, but still, the fact that you did personalize it, that's a very very important touch, I think.
Yeah, I tried to personalize it, and like I said, your first inclination is just to put a post on your Facebook page and say, hey, this is what I got to sell. But like I said, that doesn't usually work for me. And I think it might have been the one-on-one kind of interaction that might have enticed a lot of people, because they felt like, I'm focusing on them. And basically what I tried to do online is the exact same thing I do when I'm at conventions, because when I'm at conventions, I am completely like the sales guy. I detach myself emotionally from my work, and I just pitch on, here's what I've got, and this is how, I'm a sales guy at conventions. But I'm also like super laser focused on that person that I'm talking to at that moment, no matter what, no matter what they're talking about or whatever. Even if they don't buy, I'm like, try to be as super focused to them as possible, because I found from doing conventions that there's a lot of times, especially artists, we don't want to talk to a lot of people, so we keep our head down, we keep drawing or doing whatever, and people just pass people up. And secondly, there's a lot of people at conventions that are kind of like, we're timid, kind of shy, introvert kind of people. So I think, focusing on them and treating them like, a human being first rather than a customer, I think it really resonates with people. And I think that's a lot of the reason that I was so successful with the DMs on Facebook and Instagram, is because it was like a one-on-one thing. And again, this environment right now, I think a lot of people really want to help too, any way that they can. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Is kind of how I did it. And like I said, it just takes, like, for the first day of that week that I call like a sales week, it basically takes, that first day is just sitting there typing in stuff, sending off the rapid fire, kind of sending stuff off. And then the next part of it is I'm always kind of, I don't know, nervous that I'm going to make people mad if I'm not like 100% customer service, because when in college and high school and stuff, I had a lot of like, fast food jobs and stuff like that. And, hungry people, like they'll go off on you just like that. So I try to, like, be as customer service as possible. So when I would get a sale, I would immediately, when I see that, I would immediately shoot off a thank you note to people and, say, appreciate it and all that and everything. And then I would pack it up and I would try to ship it out that day, if not like the next day at the latest, so that it could at least get in the mail in like 24 hours. Because doing things like, and Kickstarter is a whole different kind of ball game, I know, but buying stuff like from Kickstarter and other things online from other people, when it takes a while to get to me, I kind of start, I don't know, maybe I just get too impatient, maybe I get too antsy, I don't know what it is, but I don't know, it just kind of makes me, it doesn't look as professional as what I think it should be. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but so I always try to get things in the mail as fast as possible. So that's the rest of my week when I do a sales week, is just basically doing customer service. When people buy things, then I'm just, sending off emails and DMs saying thank you and all that, and getting stuff in the mail, buying supplies if I need to, and getting it in the mail. Here's a tip, though, that I don't know if a lot of people know, that I learned during all this. If you're sending stuff to the post office, and if it's a book, it doesn't matter what kind of book, one little floppy, a graphic novel, whatever, ask for the media rate.
Yeah.
Because it goes to like $3 versus like $8.
Yeah, there's sort of a caveat to that. And I don't know how stringent they are or how much they check this, but if you have a typical comic, you're not supposed to send magazines through media mail, and the reason for that is the ads. But like my comics don't have ads. I know the anthology doesn't have ads, so I think it even says you can't do comics. But if you read further, it says the reasoning for that is because ads, and I guess they just assume that all comics have ads, which they don't. So even if it's even if it's they just putting a blanket statement or a concept around comics, I'll just plead ignorance because it says magazines and comics, but it also says they can't do anything. You can't ship anything with advertisements.
Well, the way that I found out about this is I had it all packaged up in like a padded envelope, and I gave it to the mail lady, and she, asked me all the thing, it's explosives and whatever. I mean, all the things that you say no to, because I mean, who's going to tell them there's a bomb anyway? But anyhow, she asked all these questions, and I was like, no, it's just books. And she was like, books. And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, maybe I can give you the mini rate. So she looked at that, and she didn't really ask me what kind of books, but she could feel that it was like a graphic novel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we got to talking, and she had a kid that liked to draw and everything too. So I came back to the post office later that day to mail some other stuff and gave her one of my Design a Super books too. So she kind of knew what the books were that I was sending out, the size and everything like that.
Yeah.
And from then on, I just asked for the media rate.
Yeah.
I had no questions.
I think that's perfectly fine. I ship all my books media mail because they get heavy. Books get heavy, even comic books, when you're sending out, 4 comics at a time or a graphic novel size book. I mean, it gets expensive. So, the only thing I worry about is sometimes I'll ship extras with it. And I don't know if you're technically supposed to, like I'll put stickers. And I don't think it's that big a deal, and if it is, I mean, it's like, I doubt they're going to split hairs over that. But definitely media mail it does take a little longer, but so as long as the post office is still around, that's the way to go.
Yeah. That was the thing. They would ask me if I wanted to send it, overnight and all that stuff, but I always try to just send it as cheaply as possible.
And you can make up for that if you get your stuff out. I try to ship out, as soon as I can. I'm trying to go less now that with the whole Corona thing, because I put the face mask in and go and do all that stuff. And I'd rather not do that every other day or whatever.
Yeah.
So I try to wait till I get a number of orders. But I think people right now, even if the problem before was people, they order for Amazon and they get used to that and they're, they want that fast delivery. But now with everything, I think people aren't expecting to get it right away. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon's even having a hard time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That now when the the norm is kind of like, oh well, we can't get it out that quickly either. Then so. Well,
I also think one of the reasons that might have been as successful as I am with Werewolves and Unicorns is because I think the week after I got furloughed is when Diamond announced that, oh yeah, by the way, we're not shipping out any new comics for the foreseeable future. And so there was like, again, like I said, I hate to use this kind of terminology because everything that's going on is just so messed up. And I know that there's a lot of people that are really hurting, and it's not. This is in no way a good situation that we were in at all.
Yeah, we understand.
But at the same time, I think it's helped my sales a lot, be crass about it, because, comic book shops were not getting new stuff. People are wanting to help people out in a dire situation anyway. And, it was just all the timing. And when they would see the book after, I even did a little video for Facebook where I kind of thumbed through it and showed people the book. When they see the book, they're very positive responses about it. Even at the convention that we did this year, when people would look through the book, that's all it would take. A lot of times is people just thumbing through it and then they would buy it because it's a quality book. Everything in it looks really good, and the graphic design on it is top notch. So, it kind of like sold itself more than anything. But at the same time, I think it just this kind of like perfect storm of stuff came together to really create a demand where maybe, and I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things you can't really quantify, because I would say maybe there wouldn't have been a demand had all this not been going on. But at the same time, I mean, you don't really know, because I mean, this is where we are, and this is the sales environment. So it's working out for me.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. I have, I've noticed, my sales pick up. Of course, you have to put everything in perspective. When you lose a lot of your clients, it's not like I would take this situation over the way it was before.
Oh, no.
But I was in a situation where I wanted to sort of move away from doing client work just to all the kind of passive income and doing my own thing. And this is pushing me to kind of ramp that up. But right now I'm in sort of this situation where kind of the world more or less is on standstill, and you kind of have time to do that where, people aren't breathing down your neck most of the time to pay your bills, which I'm still able to pay my bills. I think the mortgage payment I was able to defer for a few months, but aside from that, I'm in a situation now where I can a lot of the other bills I have, that some of those things went away just because those companies aren't able to deliver. So, or whatever the case is. But I think the other thing is, I think a lot of people, there are people out there that are still working, people that are essential workers or whatever, and they're working their butts off, and they want, they've got money coming in, and they want, they want some entertainment or something.
Yeah.
And, people are still producing artwork, and these are people that may probably had been planning to go to one or more of these conventions, and they can't go anymore. So what do? They're going to seek the stuff out online instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think, it's, you take the good with the bad, I guess. So, but I definitely know where you're coming from. And, I think, obviously the fact that you were furloughed, I'm sure, no one's going to mistakenly say, oh, it's great for you. I mean, it's not great for you, but you got to do what you can do. And it is fortunate that there are people that are purchasing artwork and wanting that, what is relatively inexpensive entertainment that they can pick up. I've seen people who are doing Kickstarters that are doing great. I've seen a lot of that stuff. I know, I switched over to concentrating most on digital stuff just because sometimes the shipping can be a problem. That's why, as much as I wanted printed books from you, I just thought it would probably be easier just to get the digital stuff. So somewhere down the road, I'll probably get some printed stuff too. But so it just depends. I think like I said, you got to kind of take the good with the bad. But I know Corey's been sort of silent over there. You have anything you wanted to add, or?
I'm just soaking it all up. I'm learning. Okay. It's interesting. I am not very good at promoting my stuff. Like that's one of the things that I need to get much better on. So I'm great at marketing other people's things and marketing for businesses, but when it comes to the stuff I make, some of the stuff that Thomas was saying at the beginning, like all those concerns about, oh, you're bugging people or that type of thing. Like, so. And I started doing it with the festival circuit, and then kind of had the opposite thing happen where festivals where you have groups of people gathering to watch films. It was played in a number of those, and then that thing just completely fell apart as like the whole world wasn't able to gather. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't even really think about that. You hadn't really mentioned that I heard of, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say about half of the ones that I submitted to that were later on in the year. They're trying to figure out what to do. Most of them have canceled or postponed. Almost none of them after, April have done anything at all. And I got into a lot of European ones as well. So it was even earlier over there, obviously, than it was here. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see that. I mean, it played worldwide, and then everything ended, and they stopped getting notifications, and then it wasn't, there wasn't anything else I could really do with it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see all that happen. But.
Yeah, I think kind of what Thomas had mentioned, and I've for most of my art career, I kind of was the same way as far as being a marketer type thing. It's only been sort of recently that I've kind of started to embrace that a little more, and it kind of sucks because that's never what I wanted to be when I kind of decided I wanted to be an artist. I kind of thought, oh, I'm just going to make cool stuff and put it out there and people are going to pick it up. That's not really the way it works. So, and if you're lucky enough, maybe you can get an agent or something that can do that kind of stuff for you. But, the more I started to do it, the more I started to get interested in it and like it. And, the more I learned, it's like, oh, okay, so I see how this works. And it's still, like Thomas said, there's still so much I can learn, and it's the marketing still isn't my favorite, but it's starting to make sense, and I'm starting to get better at it. So it's just, as an artist, it's just something you have to do, and hopefully you'll gain a little bit of a appreciation for it, and you'll start to like to do it, and you'll kind of learn that it's all kind of one thing, and
Well, what I've learned, and again, I've taken a lot of cues from the people that I worked with, all the salespeople and stuff that I worked with. The biggest thing that I've learned about sales and business in general, because I think our society, at least Western society here in America, I think we kind of have this love-hate relationship with business. We like to vilify business people and executives and tycoons and all that stuff, but at the same time we still walk around with our iPhones and whatnot that we couldn't live without if it wasn't for all these tycoon business people types. But having said that, what I have learned from a lot of the salespeople is that business in general is really all about relationships. And if you can just be a normal person and likable and just be cool with people, and especially if you're pitching, don't really, don't be so salesperson-y. Just be a normal, relationship type of person. Just be just kind of like have a conversation rather than like a sales thing. That goes a long way, because again, going back to the thing where I was saying that, when I would talk to people about business and about my sales and stuff, I don't want to bug them, and I don't want them to like roll their eyes and go, oh, great sales pitch, whatever. So, if you have more of a conversation with somebody rather than, try to sell them something. And I learned this too at conventions as well. Rather than talk, I kind of say, here's what I got. And then we'll start talking about other stuff, other comic book stuff, other Star Wars stuff, whatever it is. A lot of times if it's cosplayers, I'll talk about their cosplay and I'll talk about that stuff. And I don't know, it kind of sounds manipulative, I guess, but it's not really manipulative because you're trying to just have a conversation with people. And a lot of the times, the more time that you spend talking to them, the more it keeps them at the table and the more often they buy something. That was a big thing I did with Design a Super 2 is I have a list in there of checklist of superhero traits, and I would have kids check that list off, and then we'd draw at the table the list of the checklist. And what that did was gave them something to take away for free, and it gave their parents more time to look over the merchandise that was at my table. And a lot of times that value goes into sales too. So, but at the end of the day, it all begins with relationships and being, personable to people and having conversations rather than pitching stuff to people. And that's why when I wrote my sales pitches and did pitches to people on Facebook, that's why I wanted to basically give them something for the time it took to read the pitch and without any expectation that they would buy. And I didn't want to, I even put a line in my pitch, no pressure, don't have to buy or anything. Here's my thing, but still keep the comic. And I appreciate, you being my follower and stuff like that. Because, I genuinely feel that way. A lot of the times, my wife is more of a numbers person and more of a salesperson than I am, because at conventions, especially when it comes to kids, I'll give all kinds of free stuff out to kids, posters and comics and all kinds of stuff. My wife's like, we're not going to make any money. You do this. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. But, down the road, who knows? You might, the lady at the post office I gave a book to, her kid may go to the website and didn't see my other stuff. And, it's kind of like a long game too at the same time. And so that's the thing, going back to kind of having systems in place before crises hit. Because when you're in a crisis like we're in right now, when you trying to then start up something to make money at when you need the money like next month, you see that in movies a lot, and you see people, it's like, whoa, I'm, lit a fire into my ass and I'm out there doing the thing and making the money. That's movies. That's not real life, in my experience anyway, because it's usually when I need the money the most that I fail at coming up with something to make the money because it's all trial and error with me. And I think it's all trial and error with most people. It's just a lot of people don't like to show you their failures in the trials and the errors. So, another piece of advice that I would have for people like right now that maybe don't have resources to fall back on or anything, and they're out of work or they're on unemployment or whatever that might be. Don't sit around and just watch Netflix all day either. If you want to make comics, right now is your perfect time to make comics if you are not working, especially if you are bringing unemployment in, you're not working, and you got a lot of time on your hands. Watching Netflix is not the thing to do. Getting a Disney Plus thing is not the thing to do. I would advise you sit down and start drawing comics or start writing stuff or start doing what you want to do now, because who knows when you're going to have this kind of time again. Because when everything opens back up, and everything will eventually open back up and go back to as normal as it can go, you're going to have to go back to work again, and you're going to have to be having a bunch of different things kind of pulling at your attention. I think one of the things about this whole mess that we're in that's kind of a blessing is I think it's made a lot of people stop and really think about what's important in their life, what they can do with and do without, and what they really want, and what maybe was just, stuff that was, pulling at their attention, or just like noise in the background and stuff like that. Because, a lot of the stuff that we normally did and went to do, we don't do now because we're either at home or those things are shut down or whatever that might be. So, we have different options at this point, but yeah, I mean, business is all about relationships. Having things kind of in place when crises happen is a good deal. Going to what you were saying about URLs at the beginning of this show, I'm kind of like a URL junkie, and every time I come up with kind of like an idea, I'm like, oh, and I go get the URL because they're pretty cheap, relatively speaking, and I go get the URL. And so once I have the URL, I kind of have that like thing in the back of my mind. Well, now I need to make a website, and now I need to do this. And so, I mean, if you got a comic idea, just go get a URL and start making comics, and then make a really cheap little website. I mean, you could even go and make like a free website somewhere and then link the URL to that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to, start that side hustle or start those things to fall back on. But at the end of the day, you got to start. And that's the single hardest part for most people.
Yeah. And at the very least, get a URL for whatever whatever you're branding yourself as far as art, as an artist. Get that URL because it looks so much more professional. I mean, it's such, like you said, they're super cheap. I mean, sometimes the hosting can be a little bit, but I'm sure there's cheap hosting out there, whatever. But it's such a, and you probably don't even need that for email, but if you send somebody, sorry, my dog is starting to growl again. But if you send somebody a thing saying, this is Thomas from thomasclemmons.com, they're like, oh wow. Of course, that's probably a hard one to get, but but yeah, it just looks so much more professional when you have your own URL, and instead of at Hotmail or at
Yeah.
like a Facebook link
Well,
or DeviantArt or something like that.
Well, what I've used URLs for too is like when I was on YouTube, I would use it for my YouTube page or channel rather than telling them, go to youtube.com/
Right, yeah.
whatever it is. I would just bought a URL like I forgot what it is now, but robotfridaysketchcast.com. And then I linked that URL to my YouTube channel. And then there you go. That's all it is. I mean, it's just wherever you're hosting to, just link that URL to it. And it does two things. One, it's a lot easier to rattle off than, all the / this and that and whatever. And two, like you said, it makes it more professional looking. So
I do that a lot with my website, where I'll have kind of pages specifically dedicated to things. And so instead of saying, yeah, go to youtube.com/users/ what, I just say, go to coreykerr.com/videos. You want to check out my artwork, coreykerr.com/illustration. You want to check out my animation, whatever. And so everything is at the same place. And then, if they just remember coreykerr.com, it's on the homepage and it'll take them to those pages and whatever. But I mean, like with my YouTube channel is a mess. I mean, I've got stuff on there that's, here's tutorials for this thing, and here's tutorials for this thing, and here's tutorials for this thing. And I hate the way that YouTube organizes stuff. But if you have your own website, I just take that playlist and I link to that playlist on my website page. And so I prefer people going to my website to find stuff on YouTube than trying to search through my YouTube homepage, because it's just a mess. I mean, I've organized it as much as YouTube will allow me to organize it, but it still is really hard. I mean, people that are tech savvy find it difficult to find, which playlist is what and whatever. And so if you have your own site, you can go in there and you can say, here's a big thumbnail image that describes, these 47 videos and these 93 videos and these, 222 videos and whatever. And so you can click in and it'll take you to those playlists. And so, yeah, having your own site, I feel like is pretty important nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. I first got on the web in like 96, and I've always been one of those kind of people that wants to do everything myself. When I see a new technology or I see something art related or anything. And when the internet came up, this was, in my opinion, my chance to finally, put my stuff out there without any kind of, gatekeeper or any of that kind of thing. And so I started learning how to code back when HTML was like the only thing. It was pre-JavaScript, pre all that and everything. And, I've never been a very good coder because I'm not a very patient person. And I get I loathe coding. It's a necessary evil that I have to freaking do. But having said that, it's like one of those things. If you can learn a little bit of code and you can do the art and everything like that, it will be so much more beneficial, because I don't know how many professional comic book artists I've seen on Facebook, and even a few of them personally, that are like top-notch comic book artists that have nothing really like on the web, have none of their own comics or anything like that on the web, because they don't know how to code it. They won't take the time to learn to code it, or they can't, they told themselves most likely that they can't code it. It's same kind of thing goes with learning a little bit of graphic design and book pagination. I don't know how many people I've seen on Facebook, say they've got all their pages done, but what size book should I make, or how should I do it? And I think to myself, I'm like, these are kind of the questions you should ask before you start making the pages. And so if you learn all this, kind of, I don't know, technical stuff, along with being an artist, And I think business is one of those technical things. You can do a lot more than you think you can do, because you've got all the resources kind of handy, or at least all the, you're kind of confident you can do all the different things. Now, don't get me wrong, somebody that can actually web code is going to way outperform me any day. But at the same time, I can get all my art and all my books and everything out there and put together a little store to kind of like get something going. Because I have a little bit of knowledge in all the different areas.
Well, I think I'll argue with you a little bit. I think technical understanding of code doesn't trump clear communication.
Oh yeah.
So you go to your pages, and they might not have like some sort of CSS animated parallax scrolling or something.
Yeah.
But it's really clear. This is what you're going to do on this page. Here's the information. You click the buy button, or you go to this thing. I had an experience this week that I'm still angry about. My wife said she finally decided several days after Mother's Day what she wanted for Mother's Day. She said, I want a print of on canvas of this image. And it was an image that she had found on the internet. And so she said, I don't know who the artist is. So I had to do some Google Kung Fu, a little sleuthing. And I found the first instance of the meme of that image, and then was able to trace that back to the actual photographer. And I found the photographer's website. It was such a frustrating experience. He had no prices listed. He had no information to tell me how to buy a print, or if he was selling prints. The image itself was titled Untitled Number 3. He had some stupid artist statement that was meant for like galleries and stuff, but nothing for like the general public to like. And then he had like 6 or 7 of the 12 links that he had on that website were like dead. They didn't go anywhere or whatever. So then I had to like find him on Facebook, and then I dug through his Facebook stuff, and I had to find him on Instagram. Buried like on the 20th thing that I found on Instagram in the description of a single post was, hey, if you want to buy a print of this, email me at this address. And I'm like, by that point in time, it was frustrating. I was like, that is the worst way to do that. So like another thing is like, in marketing is think through the customer journey. Think through like, so someone wants to do something with your stuff. You have a limited window to be able to capitalize on that. And if you spend their time and their clicks poorly, they're going to have a bad experience and not come back. But if it's like, oh, I like that guy. I want that book, or I want that poster. I want that thing, and you can get on there, and within a couple clicks, you can get that thing. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. If it's an annoying experience because you've got to like dig through stuff, it's not clear what you're supposed to do or where you're supposed to go, and you get confused. People will bounce. People have very little attention for or patience for too many steps or confusing instructions or anything. So that's one thing I appreciate about your site is I look at each of those URLs, and it's clear what is going on, what's happening, what you want me to do. There's a clear path to do that thing, and so I would take that over somebody that can code better than you any day.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. And I totally agree with what you're saying as far as the communications aspect there. I mean, when I say that people should learn how to code, I mean, even if your level of coding is nothing but HTML, and you can use the tags to put up like a JPEG of each page, and then, use the browser back and forward buttons to navigate that. I mean, that's something more, it's better than nothing. And one of the big reasons too that I've always wanted to learn how to code and do all the aspects of everything is because I have a really hard time trusting other not necessarily other people, but other organizations. Like for instance, right now I have all of my Robot Friday books for digital sale on Gumroad, and that's basically my store. And that kind of makes me feel a little squirrely because I don't like depending on, you know, other companies to sell my products through, because one day those companies may go out of business or whatever,
Right.
something may happen. And then what are you going to do? That's why I always tell people that ask me at conventions about starting a comic, I always tell them, you know, get your own URL, and if you can, your own hosting, because I wouldn't rely on places like Facebook or Tumblr or Twitter or Instagram or any of that kind of stuff to strictly host your comics on, because one of these days these companies could sell to other companies or go out as a business or whatever, you know. I mean, it's kind of hard to think that, you know, Google might go out of business one day, but you know, it was kind of hard to think Lehman Brothers might too, and it happened.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't never want to trust every, you know, other places for my, I guess, livelihood or for what I want to do. I want to have as much control over it as I can possibly have. And so that's why I try to learn all the little aspects of it. But even if the aspects that you have to learn is just put up a JPEG once a week or whatever with your page or whatever, that's enough. Like you said, as long as it's clear and concise what you're wanting the reader to do, I think that's enough. Like I said, I use PayPal a lot for my sales. When I send out sales pitches and stuff, I just have my PayPal link and say, "Hey, go here, punch in, you know, X amount of dollars, and we're good to go." So, you know, there are some things we can't control unless you want to get really into the weeds with it. And one of those is, you know, credit processing and different stuff like that. So you kind of pick and choose what you can control and what not. But I would suggest people learn how to control as much as possible, because, you know, and always have things, you know, prepared, because when stuff like what's going on now happens, then you can kind of transition into that and hopefully, you know, kind of get something going. But but as far as the business aspect, you know, it's been kind of, this last month has been kind of a learning experience for me. But again, with same thing with art or anything like that, the more you do it, the more you start learning, and the more it's weird with sales. I've never been like cared about sales so much before, but once you start actually selling and actually people buying and stuff, then it kind of gets addictive, because then you kind of want to, you know, sell some more and see if people buy some more, and then if they're not, you kind of like try to figure out why and what you can change and what you can do to, you know, kind of, I don't know, not really make a game out of it, but just kind of like try and figure out what you can do. Because it took me, like I said, for those Werewolves and Unicorns book, there was a time there where it was like I had 2 books left, and I was like, man, I just want to get these sold so that they're not sitting there looking all sad on my desk at me, right? So, you know, I just kind of started thinking of ways I could try to get those sold, and you know, like I said, once you start making sales and once you start doing things, at least making progress. I don't even say, you know, making a lot of sales, but once you start making progress where people at least are paying more attention, that kind of gets addicting, and then you kind of want to do more of it.
Yeah, and the whole thing you said about, you know, being prepared, I think that is a super important thing, because, you know, obviously you had the day job and everything, but you are always doing stuff on the side. You're doing your web comic, and a lot of people just aren't. They're, you know, they get home and either they flip on the TV or they, you know, turn on the Xbox or whatever it is, and you know, and there, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but you know, if art is something you want to do, and you know, if you get to the point where, you know, this secure job that you have, I mean, who expect, even if it, you know, I think the idea of security in a job is kind of a myth, personally, based on my experience, because I've been laid off so many times that I don't ever really want to work for another company ever again. I want to try to, you know, because at least if something happens to me or my business, at least I know I have control over it, that there's something I can do. Whereas if it's up to somebody else, then, you know, you're just at their mercy. So if you know, I'm not making enough sales and I'm not making enough money, then I know that, hey, I got to change, or I got to do something different. And at least, you know, I can kind of see it coming, you know, because companies aren't so transparent. But when something like this happens, you know, it helps to be prepared, and it helps to have, maybe you weren't, I mean, you had all this stuff, and you know, whether it's your web comics or your prints or your books or whatever the case is, maybe you're not focusing that much other than when you were doing conventions and stuff, but at least you had it. So
Yeah.
when you had the point where, I mean, some people aren't even in a position. I mean, they can, if they could say, well, yeah, I could, you know, I could really buckle down and market something, but if you don't have anything to market, then you're kind of behind the 8 ball. So, you know, at least you had all this stuff. So then it's just a matter of, okay, what do? I got all this stuff. How do I get it out to people? How do I get people to know it's there, and the right people to know it's there and everything? And like you said, I mean, it's those personal connections. I mean, I think that's the place to start, as long as you have something.
Oh yeah. Well, the two things too that I kind of want to emphasize too is, one, it's taken me 10 years to build all this stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
My Patreon page, for instance, I've had that for 2 years, and it's taken me 2 years to build 12 patrons.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what hinders a lot of people too, is that they want overnight success, or they want to build a Patreon page and then they want to have, you know, $1,000 worth of patrons in a week or whatever it is. You know, Patreon, just to kind of give you an idea of how long it took me to even get any traction there, I had something like 400 and something posts, because I post every single day, before I ever had a handful of patrons. And so when I had one or two patrons, I treated them like gold, and I posted stuff for them. So even when I never have anybody looking at the stuff that I do, I'm always pretending like I do, because when people then do start coming and looking what you're doing, or signing up for your services, or whatever it might be, then you'll be prepared, because you'll have all that backlog of content. You'll have all of that kind of like, you know, the habit of doing it already set in place, so that you can, when it really matters, then you've got it going on. You've got it going. That was one. There was another point I was wanting to make, but now I forgot. But I think that's a lot of people, is that they underestimate the time that it takes to get things going. So that's why I say, if you want to do a comic, or if you want to get something going, and you got all this time in your hands right now is the time to do it. Because unfortunately, I don't think that most people starting something up right now are going to benefit monetarily a lot in the moment.
Right.
But
exactly.
a year from now, you might.
Exactly.
A couple of years from now.
That's the situation I'm in right now. I'm building a product that isn't even going to be released until like October.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, like I said, kind of right now the world's on standstill. So it's, you know, most people, you know, they have this time where, you know, some of the pressure is kind of off, and you're in a situation where you don't have as much distractions. And there's different situations. Some people now have kids at home, and that can be a distraction and everything. But whatever the case is, I mean, if you've got the time, you know, use it wisely, and you're not going to see those immediate results. But if you just sit there and wait, I mean, it takes time to build. So you've got to start. That's why you got to start building now, and then down the road, you know. So I've got this time I can spend. You know, this is a big project that I'm working on. I mean, I couldn't just spit this thing out. So I need the time to build that, and now I have the time. It's like a weird thing where, you know, I'm kind of putting in all this time on something that I'm not going to see the fruits of my labor until months down the road. But at least, you know, I know when things start going back to normal, and then when people you know, coming back. And like, for instance, I've got a daughter who's in dance, and that's on standstill. And that's like other than my mortgage, that's my most expensive bill. I don't have to pay that bill right now because she's not in dance. Once that starts back up, there's going to be a lot more bills and things that I'm going to have to pay. And when, October rolls around, then I'll have hopefully this windfall based on this, this project that I'm sinking all this time into. So yeah, I mean, use this time wisely. I mean, and start. It's never, it's never too late. But the best time to start something like that is now, and just start building a little bit at a time, so you have something like that. Because who knows what can happen. I mean, we're just in this crazy situation. No one ever even. Well, I'm sure some people out there saw it, but coming or anticipated it, but most people didn't. And the world is in the same situation too. So, I mean, it's just a unique time, for better, for worse, for whatever. It's a unique time, and there's some unique opportunities here. I know they don't seem like opportunities, but in some ways they are.
Yeah. Well, when I do anything, I'm always trying to ask myself, how can I monetize the actual process of doing it? And there's ways to monetize the actual process of doing stuff. A lot of people think too that, for instance, the graphic novel that I'm working on, it's going to take me 2 years to finish this graphic novel at the rate that I'm going. And so a lot of people think, well, you won't see any money from that for 2 years, if even then. And I think that discourages a lot of people from even starting when they look at, the monumental task that's in front of them. But the way that I look at it is that I can set up a Patreon page, and then I can show the process as I work on a page every single day, and people will sign up for that because they like to see process stuff, or they, whatever you're doing. And not only that, but you can share as much of it on social media. So, there's always the end product that I'm always thinking about trying to monetize, but at the same time, I'm always trying to think about the process, trying to monetize that too, because at the end of the day, we spend more time on the process than we do on the actual finished, selling the finished product. The finished product, in my opinion, is the nice thing to have that you've already done, that you can sell multiple times over and over again. But, you've got to try to figure out how to monetize the processing part of it too, so that you don't spend, 3 years in obscurity until you get between each project. And so, there's always ways to monetize things, and always ways to kind of promote yourself, as long as as long as you're doing the work. And I think a lot of people get discouraged from it just feels so overwhelming to do things, especially try and work for yourself, or try and make any kind of living for yourself, because you think to yourself, well, I gotta make $3,000 a month doing what XYZ, because that's what my bills are, or whatever, whatever monetary commitment you have. And then when they think, how do I do that on my own and everything, it gets discouraging. But just little steps, and figure out how to try to monetize as much as possible. Now, when anybody says, well, figure out how to monetize XYZ, it's like, yeah, well, that's the trick, right? So, it's a lot of trial and error, but that's the thing. You just got to kind of suck it up and do it. And, with like the sales pitches, when I started doing those, I'm not a natural salesperson. So I was all, I was sitting at my computer on Facebook. Nobody was in the house with me. And I was all like sweaty palms and stuff, trying to like figure out this sales pitch, because I was already nervous that people were going to be all, leaving my Facebook page, because this dude's like trying to sell me on stuff all the time. And none of that happened. And, but you just got to suck it up and do it. And like you said, Scott, I think right now is a unique time. And so out of a lot of bad situations always comes opportunity. You just got to figure it out. You just got to see what it is. And, I just think that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think, very well said. I think, so we're getting close to our hour and a half mark. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to mention real quick before we do our kind of rounds and what we want to promote and everything one more time?
Nothing that I can think of. I'm sure, after we're off here, I'll be like, oh yeah, I should have said this, that, whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, everything that I've been talking about is just kind of the stuff that I ramble off to my friends and stuff anyway. So I think I pretty much exhausted everything I've got on my mind at the time.
All right. What about you, Corey? Anything you wanted to add?
No, I think it's great. I mean, we kind of touched on a bunch of different things. I think the hub and spoke model is kind of one of the most important things with promoting online. And then the other thing that Thomas was just saying that I really liked is something that Jake Parker does that I try to do is everything he makes, he tries to make it have multiple purposes.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah, and so if I make something, if I design a sticker, can that also be a tutorial and an Instagram post and an asset for an animation, or something instead of making one-offs, you can kind of double or quadruple your effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my comic maker toolkit, my digital products, a lot of the things that are in there, I put them into like book form, and then I've got some of the assets from a particular product, like the some of my avatar builders I'm using for this new project I'm working on, and I'm combining things from other things that make sense. And so I'm constantly trying to figure out what else can I use this. I did some dog coloring books, and basically all the backgrounds are the same. The dogs kind of change, but so I don't have to redraw all those backgrounds. So I'm always thinking like that. So and I know I've seen kind of Thomas's process when he does his web comics, where he builds sort of a library of characters where he can take those and kind of reuse and use different poses and flip them and add different elements to them, and that helps save time. So always think about that stuff, how to be efficient and everything. I think we could probably do a whole other show just on that topic, but that's definitely something you want to think about. All right, so Corey, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at CoreyKerr.com, and I've got a little link tree there. But if you just go to CoreyKerr.com, everything branches out from that. Doing stuff on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. So, but that's the one link that I drive all the traffic to. So
one link to rule them all.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thomas, where can everyone find you and anything that you want to promote?
My primary place is ClemmonsComicsandCrafts.com. Like Corey said, everything kind of links out from there. My thing that I'm doing right now is my graphic novel, which is Hope, Texas. You can find that at welcometohopetexas.com. Also check out my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Thomas Clemmons. Like I said, I post a couple of times a day there, and everything I do process wise is there. I post a lot on social media, but I post way more stuff there than any of my other social media. So, and then robotfriday.com is my, longest running webcomic, and designersuper.com as well, which is my how to draw book. And I think that's pretty much the whole shebang.
All right. Awesome. So once again, if you are sort of like Thomas in your situation where you've been furloughed, or if you just want to get some really great content, and you haven't been furloughed and you want to help some people out, definitely check out Fired Festival. That is, if you're watching this live, and I know it's late for a lot of people, so you're probably watching this later. But if you're watching it live tonight, it's Friday the 15th, and I think it starts at around 10 Pacific. So depending on where you are in the country or the world, but yeah, they've just got an awesome lineup, and it's all stuff that's designed to help you in sort of times like these. It's going to be real helpful. And as far, with the quality of speakers that they have, I realize it is not a physical conference that you're going to, but still, $25, and for that to go towards helping people out with, grocery cards and things for people that really do need it. This is just a great event that Mark Rickey from Adventures in Design is putting on, and definitely, check out his podcast if you aren't already, because there's just amazing content. I listen to it, whenever he puts out an episode. I really have to join he's got a circle of trust where he's got all, he puts out even way more content. So that's something I probably got to look into, but definitely, I've already signed up. And if you're in a situation where you have been furloughed and you want some advice on what you can do, stuff like what we're talking about now, for that, you can join for free. But if you can afford it, do the 25, because, I'm sure there's more people that are, kind of opting into the free one. So the more people that can kind of help out and everything, and there'll also be donations and things, but I'm going to be there tomorrow while I'm working, checking all this great content out and everything. So definitely check that out. And as far as this show that we're doing right here, it switches back. Usually, I guess we forgot to mention my regular co-host Josh is out. He's been dealing with a lot. Fortunately, he's kind of busy right now because his company. It would have been interesting to have him on this episode because he was in a similar situation and he kind of saw this coming way before a lot of us, because a lot of the work that his company did was produced in China, and that started happening first. So he was kind of, and a lot of the stuff that they did was for like theme parks and things like that. So, he basically was furloughed really quick, but then his company started figuring out, now he's working from home and he's working even more, it seems like. So it's kind of a weird situation, but he would have definitely had some input into this subject. But anyway, so this show, the Artcasters, usually switches back and forth from my channel to Josh's channel, and it gets a little confusing. So if you want to know exactly whose channel we're going to be on, what time, what day, all that stuff, we've got a mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video, as well as links to where you can find us and where you can find Thomas. So definitely check out those links and sign up for that mailing list, and we don't spam you or anything like that. Usually about 30 minutes ahead of time, we will send out an invite, and you'll just click on that and you will know where the live stream is going to be, because YouTube doesn't always notify people, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's that. And I want to thank Corey for coming on last minute, because Josh literally about 45 minutes before we were going to go live said, my work called me and they needed me to do some stuff. So I appreciate Corey for helping us out. Appreciate Thomas for coming on, especially on his birthday. Is it no longer your birthday now, or is it?
Yeah,
still,
it's over with. It's over with.
Where you're at, it's where I am. It's still your birthday, so I'm going to say happy birthday once again. And and I wanted to thank the chat. All you guys, we really appreciate you stopping in, and it's just all the great comments and everything. So thank you to everyone, and yeah, that's going to do it for this week's Artcasters, and I guess we'll see you guys all next week. Later.